Hi, I'm Amy Baldwin, and I'm here with Laurie Hazard, and we're talking about Thanksgiving break, which will be here before we know it. Laurie, I'm just curious, what is your family's go-to dish that you have to have in Thanksgiving break?
Well, my sister and I, the Brussels sprout rage that has cropped up in the last couple of years. Every
Uh-huh.
year we've been trying new Brussels sprout dishes, and my mother's not too keen on them, but that's all right.
Yeah.
We override her preference.
Okay, I did not expect Brussels sprouts to come out of your mouth, but I'm Southern, so we have to have cornbread stuffing. That is a must. That
Hmm.
that you can't have Thanksgiving without it. So
Yeah.
we're yeah.
Well, I was just going to say we have the meat stuffing and the traditional stuffing, and that there's French influence with some guests that come to Thanksgiving. So we have provided them with the meat stuffing, which it turns out I really like and can forego that and not even have a piece of turkey.
Okay. Um, all right. So, an interesting way to kind of get into Thanksgiving break, right? We're talking about what families, parents, siblings, maybe even can do to kind of ease the Thanksgiving break. So, tell me, what is it that's the issue about Thanksgiving break? Why is it such an important like point in the semester for students? What's going on?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think about the rhythm of the semester and the ebbs and flows of the semester. So Thanksgiving break comes at like week 11 or 12, depending if it's a term or a semester. And typically, what happens is students go home for break, they come back to campus, and they've got a very short period of time to prepare for finals. So, a pattern that I've observed in students over the years is they're on that marathon or that sprint of the semester until they get to Thanksgiving, and when they go home they kind of exhale, they relax, they're with their families. Many times students think of it as a mini vacay and they don't do work over those couple of days, and then they go back to campus and they have to ramp up to fifth gear in order to finish that marathon, and many of them lose their motivation, right? They lose the groove, and it's so hard for them to get back up and ready to finish the home stretch of the semester. And I like to let students know of this pattern because I think they have to do that anticipatory problem solving, that recognize that this might happen to you, and what are you going to do to sort of ward against it.
Yeah. So that is a part of it. I also think that a lot of students are excited to go home for Thanksgiving. They're hungry. They're waiting for their favorite foods, their comfort foods, perhaps. There's that tradition. And so they kind of get excited about it. But oftentimes, because they've been gone for a few months, they've been doing their own thing. They've been getting up at a certain time, going to bed at a certain time, coming and going. That re-entry into a elongated holiday with multiple family members is a little difficult for them. And I found that I had, my kids were staying up till 2, banging around in the kitchen at 1 o'clock in the morning. And it was just kind of disruptive to the whole, spirit of the holiday. And that was kind of hard. And then I also have heard students, some of my students who dread going home. So, and part of that is because they've kind of seen a wider world, and they're coming back to maybe relatives who have a very different perspective on you know the world, politics, religion, art and music and things like that. And so they find it difficult to come back in, and they're not the same person they were. And then how do they renegotiate those kinds of relationships? So just curious, do you have any advice for students who are uh, thinking about, or maybe worried about, or maybe not even thinking about, they're excited and they're not even thinking about what could be a possibility? What would you tell them and their families?
You're spot on. First year in particular is a period of growth, and students go off and that maybe their values are being tested. And like you said, their worldview is widening. Maybe they start thinking that their values and their family's values don't exactly align, and they're really kind of testing that out. I think getting students ready for the possibility that they are going to have those conflicts is really important, and to reflect on those. And I feel like it's that dimension of emotional intelligence where they really have to develop their intrapersonal skills, how well they know themselves, to decide whether or not they want to raise some of these issues with their families. And students need to know their families to figure out whether or not, if I raise this issue, or if I disclose to my family that this is how I'm thinking, this is how I'm feeling, knowing my family members, how are they going to respond? And am I willing to have maybe some of those courageous and tough conversations? So
Yeah.
expect that shift might occur.
Yeah. And you and I talked earlier too about it, laying some expectations about that, lowering that, you know, resting, that they may be sleeping a lot and may not want to get involved in certain things. That's pretty normal, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's thinking of it from the parent and family side too, that the parents and families might expect the student to return and be exactly the same, and that Thanksgiving tradition long weekend is going to look exactly how it was. And so I feel like sometimes parents and families can be disappointed that the student's sleeping until noon and they're not getting up and helping with the shopping and the cooking and the things that they might have participated in before, or the baking of the pies, because the students really, in some ways, looking at Thanksgiving as a way to recover from the stress of the semester and
Right.
using that time to recharge. And they don't want to dive deep into the family ritual. So I think parents should anticipate that there might be that shift and be ready for it and kind of manage their emotions around it too.
Yeah. And what about families that have to experience a student not wanting to come home, or not wanting to come home at on Thanksgiving? They want to spend it with some new friends, or they have a significant other, or they want to travel. That can be disappointing, can it?
Yeah, and it's embracing that your student has these opportunities that they might not otherwise have had, and try to be happy for them and work on that like letting go process, which is super, super hard. And often the advice that you hear all the time around the holidays, that it's just a day and you can still connect and regroup and um, have time with your student on another weekend. Just because it's
Right.
Thanksgiving or Christmas doesn't mean that
Right.
this is it.
Yeah. So we took the holiday and made it a little bit frightening for some families. Well, maybe not frightening, but it's fraught. So let's just kind of end on a positive note and kind of recap what we just talked about. So you said one thing is be cognizant of the rhythm, that's the student has got to, if they're going to rest over the Thanksgiving break, they're going to have to be able to get back up to speed, as soon as possible. That might mean that they need to leave early. They may have to go back to campus, Saturday or Sunday, to get ready for that. And then they come in and their routines and their viewpoints are a little different. What can we do to make sure that it doesn't disrupt everything? Families, what do they need to do?
I think parents and families and students alike need to anticipate that some of these conflicts could potentially arise. And everybody just needs to take a deep breath. And I think parents and families need to step back and give the student that time and space to be struggling with some of these issues and figuring them out and being in that growth process. And they may have learned something new in a class and say something that they're kind of playing with that idea or that thought at the moment, but in 2 weeks from now, they're going to be on to another
Yeah.
hot topic. So
Yeah.
not to say, oh my gosh, my student used to believe this and now they believe that. What are we going to do?
Yeah. And one phrase is, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. Instead of
That's
trying to
great.
jump in and say, you don't know what you're talking about. And, you're absolutely right. They're playing with ideas. They're playing with viewpoints. They're feeling what the boundaries are. And just like, a younger version of themselves, you want to, encourage that kind of thought process and that kind of transformation.
I think to couch it, the students are going through a growth and transition process and figuring themselves out as emergent and young adults. And so too are parents and families readjusting to that family dynamic shifting because that student's not in the house any longer. But also parents and families are adjusting to how do you parent a young adult, because that looks very different than parenting an adolescent. So they have to rethink their parenting and those strategies. The strategies look a little different. Like, tell me more about what you think about this topic.
Yeah. Where did you come up with this? And then the last thing I think is just being prepared, parents and families being prepared that their student may have some alternate plans. And if so, how are you going to work through that and negotiate it? What is non-negotiable to your family? For me, it's we have to have cornbread stuffing. I don't care what day it is, but that's a non-negotiable. We could do it on Sunday. But figure out what the non-negotiables are and then communicate that can be, will help you set you up for success in terms of y'all are not going to be disappointed necessarily. And that's just, part of it. But I love what you said about parenting a young adult versus parenting an adolescent. Very, very different. And I'm going to throw one more thing in.
Throw it in.
Is because we've got time, that be mindful of the fact that the student has classwork, and don't schedule trips that go beyond the Thanksgiving holiday. I see a lot of students who have to miss the whole week because their parent has bought them a ticket somewhere. And that can devastate students. It can certainly put a big dent in their momentum. And then they're having to negotiate with faculty, which some faculty are just not, they're not going to move a test. They're not going to move a review session because your student is in Costa Rica for a Thanksgiving getaway, and good for you for being able to provide that for the student, but just be mindful of they have obligations and a schedule.
Yeah, I think we talked about how parents might be surprised if students are resting and relaxing and needing that time to recharge, but there are going to be other students that are home that are freaked out about the finals that are coming, and all they're going to want to do is focus on their schoolwork.
Right.
So it sort of runs the gamut, doesn't it?
Yeah. You may just have to check in with them before you make any. I wouldn't make any plans. That's just me. Wait till the official break in December starts. But you want to talk to them first and have them check things out, or just put it off at a time where that they're not involved in a semester or a term. So anyway, happy holidays, right?
Yes.
Happy Thanksgiving. Just know that you can get through it. It's not the end of the world. There might be conflict. Use your communication tools. Give people some space and grace, and then you'll be okay, right?
That is the key, effective communication.